Well, welcome to another week's analysis behind the news. First of all, we see the continuing saga in Egypt, which we've been discussing week after week. It seems to be emanating from a lady by the name of Faiza Abdul Naga, who is at one time the foreign minister under Mubarak in Egypt. It's interesting that you have a woman, and by the way, what's going on is that this woman is pressing forward with the investigation we've been talking about against various foreign NGOs that have been injecting themselves into Egyptian politics. And the net result of this interference is the growth of the Egyptian Brotherhood and other Islamic militants into the Egyptian government. Now, it's interesting that probably this woman wouldn't be involved in any new government formed out of this sort of a situation because, as we all know, militant Islam doesn't look too good on women being in politics, even in the marketplace as far as that goes. And if they are in public, they get to wear an all-black uniform that covers everything but their eyes. And in some countries, they even cover their eyes with a mesh. So I wouldn't want to be walking around in the heat enrobed the way these women are forced to be enrobed. But be that as it may, they're pressing forward with this. The net result is that they're trying to put a stop to what some American CFR-controlled organizations are trying to do to Egypt. In the World News section of the Financial Times this week, it had an article in here, Egypt Islamists face test on Christian evictions. And they're talking about evicting Christians out of some areas in Egypt. And it ends up this way, and it's nothing new for you, those of you who've been watching this. The election of an assembly in recent weeks with an Islamist majority, drawn mainly from the Muslim Brotherhood and from ultra-conservative Salafi Islamists, have dismayed Egypt's Christians, an estimated 10% of the population. They fear the Islamization of politics would aggravate discrimination and further marginalize them in public life. But that's the case, and we're going to be doing a major article on this in the New American magazine soon, to show that everywhere we've stuck our nose into the Middle East or Arabic countries, the net result has been the discrimination, not just discrimination, but the elimination, if you will, and genocide of Christians in those countries. They've been able to live there for millennia, actually. Some of these places, they're there in Egypt, certainly for 2,000 years. But now they're becoming, as they put it, marginalized and in being forced out, churches burnt down, blown up, Christians killed, attacked in their homes. They've got to get out of town, and we all know that in Iraq, the Christian community has been decimated there when it once was somewhere around 1 million Christians. In Europe, we see something that we've been discussing, that the ultimate end to all this crisis, all this financial crisis, is a united Europe. Not just a European Union, but a United States of Europe. This is the end of all these particular crises that you see that are being foisted on us by these major bankers and the governments in league with these bankers. They want a one-world government, and each step along the route is being put together in the middle of the crisis in Europe, the crisis in America, etc., etc. In, again, the Financial Times, it says, French business wants federal Europe. French business has laid out a radical manifesto for the looming presidential election calling for a fully federal United States of Europe. They want ultimately to have a common economic, monetary, defense, and security policy with an elected president. You know, that sounds amazingly like what they want to do with the Security and Prosperity Partnership that Bush put in 2005 to bring forward what we have nicknamed the North American Union. Oh no, we're not trying to start a new country. No, we just want to, as they put here, have a common economic, monetary, defense, and security policy. Well, that's exactly when you went to the website, on the official government website, and looked at it. They said, that's all we want to do. We're not forming a new country. We're just going to merge all this stuff. Well, when you look at it, it's a new country. And now the business associations in France apparently are calling for such an entity to be put together. The manifesto said, quote, "The winning scenario for the future is one of much more integrated European governance and is for a United States of Europe." We see that the second in command in China is visiting the United States, being touted all over, being given a 19-gun salute out in front of the Pentagon, bowing and scraping and smiling, and everything is wonderful and rosy, because this man is going to be the next president of China. Well, how do they know that? Do they hold elections in China? Is he really a president? Why don't they call him the next Führer, or the next chairman, or the next dictator? Because that's really what he is, if he becomes one. But don't for an instant think that that man will be the one individual in power. He will be just simply the public relations man for a party system, an organization that has placed these individuals in power. Any more than the new leader of North Korea, this guy that looks like a dead fish that you could stick your finger through, who's been pampered all of his life, who's been put in a uniform and stuck up on a balcony so he can, you know, give the wave to all these massed millions down in front of him, is no more the leader of North Korea and the man on the moon. He's a stooge. It's the party behind him, the organization behind him. It's the way it is in dictatorships. We think it's that one guy, it's the Hitler, it's the Stalin, or whatever. They may get a lot of power, but ultimately it is the organization behind them. They just stick these guys up front. And then we get mad at them not understanding the very nature of power, not understanding the very nature of organization. It is a missing ingredient in the United States relative to the conservative side, except for the John Birch Society. We are the only ones who organize like the other side to out-organize them. It's something that you really have to study and take a look at. Now, I know some of you out there are a little chagrined that I mentioned things about the public schools. I know a little bit about the public schools. I went through them, okay? And they were not that good in certain areas, even when I went through in the 40s and 50s. Believe me. I used to get into all sorts of problems with my teachers because I read a few other things besides the standard history books that I was given in school. But let me give you an example. And I've done this before, but it's been a year or so, so I'm going to do it again, to demonstrate the deterioration of the public schools. Not just the public schools, it's schools all across the board, particularly when it comes to history. I know of no school in this country that teaches history. Now, I know that's an astonishing statement for most of you, but if you go and spend thousands of hours in libraries, as I have around the country, when I worked for myself, then you begin to understand that the history that I studied in school is no relationship to fact from the context of those facts and how they string together. But at any rate, this is my great-grandfather's primary grammar book. Now, he walked through the door of his little white or red schoolhouse, I'm not sure which it was, and this is the book that he was given for grammar right away. And let me read you some of the sentences they used to have for grammar lessons. Now, keep in mind, your child is seeing Spot run, the ball is red, etc. This is the kinds of things that they're using as examples back in the 1850s, okay? Truth is lovely. Not the ball is red. Sin always brings misery. Now, these are examples of questions where the schooled kids are supposed to pick out the nouns and the verbs and the punctuation and everything else. Sin always brings misery. Children should speak the truth. A soft answer turns away wrath. Punishment follows crime. You see, they're not only using examples for punctuation and grammar, they're using examples of moral uplifting. Charles is happy because he is good. John is loved because he is kind. Susan is in trouble because she is thoughtless. Oh, those girls. God loves little children if they love the truth. And I'll finish it on this one. The Bible teaches man's duty and the way to heaven. Wow. Can you imagine teaching that in the public schools today? You could teach that in a Christian academy, but you can't teach that in a public school. Oh, heavens, that would be awful to teach that the Bible is the way to heaven. It doesn't say that it's Christian, it doesn't say it's Judaism, it just says the Bible. So you don't get into these denominations and everything else. But at any rate, these are the examples that were given to my great-grandfather when he was a primary student, right away when he was in school. You don't see that sort of thing today, and it's sad. This is primary work, by the way, again, to make that point very clear. And that's the kind of thing that our kids studied. They went into school with a 30 to 50,000 word vocabulary, and then we say, see the spot, run. It's boring to kids. Until next week, we'll see you then.